I get a paper saying that I get it at work. But the has comment.
How are you guys?
Has
Good.
We're live.
Okay. All right.
What's up, man?
I gotta get used to this. This is a work session plus special meeting, so. Okay, we got a minute or two. Folks, just keep in mind, if you haven't been here before, anything you say in here while we're live can be picked up on these microphones, so. Especially if you weren't bad about the mayor. A lot of people would like that, but it will go out across our, live feed, so just so you know. Okay.
Jim, you got your stuff from me? The packet I left for you?
Yes, I took it all. Yeah, I stopped by earlier, grabbed it. Thank you.
Okay.
The only thing I end up wanting to get from you is the list of the bonds.
Well, the debt
Use-
service schedule.
Yes, the debt service schedule. I don't need it now. You had given it to me before, and I just,
I can give you my copy and then just print a new one out for myself
that would be
tomorrow.
outstanding. Thank you.
Oh, you guys, you can thank Gene in the front office, but you got a copy of the.
Yes.
Yeah,
I
you
was
got a
gonna
color
ask for
copy
it
of the
because I
Donahue
was gonna
Farm,
say, I don't know if we were gonna mark this
plan,
up or-
so.
No, that's your copy.
Dave?
Keep.
Thank you, Gene.
that?
Thank you.
Huh?
They didn't scan
Nice,
me
huh?
on the appendices.
Okay. There's budget.
It's gonna be so big.
Well,
So, Gene,
I
this
think
is a
the
special
content
meeting
itself,
of the board,
it's
right?
most of
So
the
we're not
appendices.
entering something and then coming
Their-
out of it. It's just
their
a special
piece
meeting with
is,
the public hearing
18
at the front.
pages.
Okay.
Just the very beginning.
And there's
Yeah.
no
It's
public
just like,
comment.
except for
recommendations,
Yeah, yeah.
images and stuff, and then,
Because we're in a work session.
The rest is
and then it's all the documents that
yeah.
we had from,
Oh,
including,
oh.
Got it.
surveys, all that, yeah.
yep, the actual conservation
Yeah.
easement.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good to have. Good to have. Survey results in here too.
Keep in mind, you're,
Yeah.
Oh, sure. Oh, okay, here I see it.
All right.
I'm glad I didn't start. I was gonna start it on my printer. And I said,
Yeah.
"Oh shit, I don't know. Yeah, mine's kind of slow. It is a long time."
Fortunately, mine's
Getting that.
broken. So I didn't-
No,
wasn't
that's
even
why
tempted.
I actually texted and said, are we gonna have one that we might, in
you
case
got
we have to
notes.
mark, if we're gonna
this is
mark it up.
from,
I don't know if that's a
this is
plan
from
to mark it up or
Yeah.
not.
Yeah, so this is just,
Yeah,
tonight
just
is
a
just
review.
acknowledging receipt of it.
Yeah.
But they worked their butts off.
Oh, God.
All right. Why don't we stand for the pledge, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, let me just remind everybody again, these microphones are live. There's a microphone at the back table where the department heads sit. There's one over here. They pick up everything. So if you whisper, it gets picked up. Just be careful about that. I'm gonna make a motion to open up the special meeting tonight, because that's what this is in relation to the budget. May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so this is typically our work session, which is the second Tuesday of every month. But because we have to approve the budget by January 23rd, or the first draft of the budget becomes our budget, we've been doing a lot of work on that. I'd like to certainly thank the village's treasurer, who also works daily as the village clerk, Jean Mahoney, for that, who put together a very detailed budget for us, as well as each of the department heads that had to come up with their budget. And my goal was that we don't raise taxes, we keep everything beneath the tax cap, and we continue to provide the services that the people in this village have come to expect and deserve. So a great job thus far. So for tonight, because this is supposed to be a work session, we have a public hearing at the top. After we open that, which I'll do in moments, we will discuss it as a board, and then we will give the public an opportunity to weigh in on that. Then we will close that and go into a work session. There will be no other opportunities for public comment tonight. We can be flexible, of course, but there's only one opportunity to speak to budget matters. So, proof of notice and publication having been furnished, and copies of the budget having been distributed to the Board of Trustees and made available to the public on our website, I'm going to make a motion to open the public hearing on the 2024 budget. May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, in the proposed budget, the general fund revenues and expenditures total $4,400,545. The water fund total is $3,241,282. And the sewer fund total, $557,000. The property tax line will remain the same. However, due to changes in the assessment roll, there will be a slight, and when I say slight, a 0.605424% increase in the tax rate. I'd like to again thank Treasurer Mahoney, I got that wrong, as well as the department heads for helping to put this together. They do it every year. I am the chief budget officer, but you know that Santa gets all the credit, and you know that the elves are the ones behind the scenes actually making this happen. So the department heads and Gene, thank you. And I'd also like to thank the department heads because I asked them not to go over the line on anything, and I can promise you this, I asked them to do far more than we're budgeted for in regards to manpower, in regards to getting things done, and they figure out a way to do it. So, without any further comment, any discussion amongst board members and department heads? I know the department heads are here tonight. Oh, first of all, Trustee Gaylord is out of town with family, so he is not here, but we do have a 4-member quorum. And Mr. Carmona, our building inspector and code enforcement officer, I just spoke to him and just left for the day. He had another commitment, couldn't be here. I'd like to welcome newly minted Chief Quinn, who's going to be here from the fire department, obviously Chief Dixon from the police department, Superintendent Halverson from the Department of Public Works, and Mike Trainer, our water superintendent, is traveling back from the great state of Nevada, I got to say that right, where he took a trip with his wife and they arrived back today, so he is not here. So, without further ado, I will open it up to the trustees if there are any issues or questions. I know we've been grinding through this, and I know some of the trustees have already reached out to the village treasurer separately, but does anybody have an issue or a comment they'd like to make before I open it up for public comment?
No,
Start with you.
I would say that, thanks, Gene, for doing this. I think it's pretty tight. The questions that I had previously, I went through a second time, and understand them. I would say that just with respect to the county sales tax, I think that is, that's definitely more in line, the 500.
That's if you're following along at
I'm
home,
sorry,
that's
yeah.
line 3,
Line
county
3,
sales
county
tax.
Sales tax, yeah. No, I think that's more in line. And I don't remember seeing, I'm just looking at my numbers here. I don't remember seeing any real surprises on anything. Let me just see, PBAs, that's all good. I think I just had actually a question was for Mike Trainer, but I know he's not here. And it was really more of it wasn't a change or anything. I just noticed that, and we can pose this to Mike when he gets back, but online, was it water expense? I have it circled, hold on. In the purification expense, hold on, I circled it off. Oh, here it goes. So it looks like when you look at the trend, line 20 in the water fund expenditures, we've gone from 187,000 down to we're projecting as 105. So we've saved over 80,000. I'm just assuming that is because one, our leak detection, therefore it's a reduction in our purification expenses. Unfortunately, it's then taken away by the fact that we have to bump up our distribution equipment, transmission distribution equipment, at least another 70, 40, 130, 140,000. No, 105,000. So just a comment about that. I think they've been doing a great job on the leak detection. So that saved us an enormous amount of money. Other than that, I think it's pretty tight. I don't see anything outstanding or anything off the charts in regards to any errors or miscalculations. So
How many years you been on the board?
Too many.
2010, too many.
So, no, but as our longest standing member of this body, so, I mean, I'm always glad to hear your takes on things. And one of the things I should have done at the top was, for those reading along, and this is something I had to be educated on, but anything in the code line that is alpha, and then there's a number past it, that is related to the general fund. The general fund and the water fund are two separate things. If you want to see the water fund, you can go to those pages, and you'll notice that there is a W in the code line, obviously for water. So just to let you know, and then there's our actual budget from 2020, 2021 in the next column, the actual budget from 2021 to 2022 in the third column, and then budget 2022, 2023 in the next column, and where we are through December 31st in the following column, and then finally in red is the proposed budget for 2023, 2024.
And there's one last thing I wanted to point out, and Gene did this back in November, and that was most residents understand that the tax cap is 2%. But when you go through the calculation or the formula they use, the state uses, it's really not 2%. And in this case, this year, we could not go beyond a 1.0063%. So it's not 2%. And it hasn't been it was 2% from the very beginning when they started this about 10 years ago. So each year, it keeps going down incrementally for us. So it's not just under 2%. I mean, Jim has advised it's a 0.605%. We had that delta of about 0.4%. So just understand it's not 2% this year. It's really a 1% we couldn't go over, and we're well under that. So good job to the department heads. And Gene, thank you.
Trustee Carnwright.
I just have a couple questions. So, under general fund expenditures, A1 1454, the $3,000 extra hours that's
What line
because,
number is that, Dave?
15.
1450.4.
Got it, got it.
That's is that extra 3,000 is because we extended the voting times?
It's actually an extra 1,000 from last year, and
Oh, I
that is
see.
to cover the additional costs for the
Okay,
extra
so that's for
hours.
the extra hours.
Yeah.
And then under records management, the next line, so that that position was not in last year's fiscal year?
This is a brand-new line in our budget, never seen before,
I thought
because
so.
our grant ended at the end of December.
Oh, I see.
We don't want to lose the momentum that we've started getting
I
our
got
records in order, so we've found a way to budget a part-time intern to continue the work.
Okay,
And I should note that the village clerk appealed to the state in regards to a hardship to see if we could get it extended, and the state denied it. And so we had built into the budget in the event that we wanted to keep the records intern online for a 1-year period, let the village board take a look at things and then readjust next year, but that's the purpose for building that in.
the only other question I have is under, A 9010.8, New York State retirement is actually went down. We actually budgeted less money for the retirement system?
Mm-mm. We went
No,
up.
we budgeted, you're right, Dave, we budgeted 94,170, and our bill was 97 this year, so it was slightly higher than what we had anticipated.
Okay. No, I was just wondering.
But if you notice,
never goes
21,
down.
22.
Yeah, that's what I'm-
It was higher. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, so there's different options when you pay the retirement system. You can pay up front, or you can, if you don't have that kind of cash available up front, you do pay it in increments, and you pay a percentage, like a premium of 1 or 2%. So we try to keep
I
that
got
to a
you.
medium, and we get information from the retirement system every year calculating what they estimate our cost to be.
I see. Okay, I was just wondering. It never goes down. That's why.
No.
Okay. That's the only questions I have. Fire away, Bill.
I just had a couple. One is I just wanted to call attention to the fact that there is money in this budget for Donahue Farm maintenance that is under line 45 on the expenditures. Building maintenance is increased by, I think, $15,000, and that includes Donahue Farm. Other Donahue Farm
Oh, I see,
lines
yeah. Yep.
that are affected are line 24 is tax bill for the habitable property there. And then on line 25 in revenues, sorry, the first page, gifts and donations. Yeah, we've budgeted $5,000 in anticipated fundraising for Donahue Farm. Am I missing any lines that relate directly to Donahue Farm?
No,
There was
so
no
you
grounds
covered all
maintenance
three.
or property?
No.
What else? Anything else?
Yeah, just, I expect nodded heads with this. Salary increases are contractual.
For the union people, the
Yes.
union calculates
The
a 2.7.
Code enforcement, I know we did add a person doing part-time work, so that
Yep.
saw a larger bump.
So
right?
what we typically do is we follow the union pay raises.
Yeah.
Being non-union, the board has the right to have that number be higher, lower, whatever they choose, but they have historically been running in line with what the union gets.
And I think our contract with both, Dave, with CSEA, it's a 2025, am I right, 2025?
They have this March and next March.
Okay,
And it goes in line with everybody.
so we get to get started on that once again.
Full-time, to get that 2.0.
Yes, okay.
Including the front office. I should point out, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, there's an increase in the board salaries. Is that right?
2.75%.
Yeah, and what was that amount? I think it worked out to $112 a year.
$366 I think combined, right?
So,
For the water and-
so one of the things that we looked at on this board, and I know it's a distasteful topic for any of us to bring up, especially in light of what just happened up in Albany. But this board had not received a raise. Now, understanding the amount of money that is paid to the elected members here, which, trust me, is, we're happy with, we decided to put the pay increase on that in line with what the union contract was. So we made it 2.75% for this year, not in perpetuity, but for this year. I think in total for the mayor, when you include being the chief budget officer, as well as being the, not the water superintendent, but what is the title?
Water committee.
Water
The
Commission.
water committee chairperson, I think it works out to just around $500 for the year. For the trustees who have a slightly lower salary, I think each trustee, because they have to split it from the same pot, will receive an additional $111 for the year. So that's what we're gonna do this year. We'll take a look and we'll recalibrate next year and make sure it's in line. And I wanted to keep it consistent with how things were over the years. There have been some fits and starts, some years where there were raises given, other years, including decades, where they weren't. We didn't want to do anything radical. We don't think that's appropriate, but we thought this would be appropriate to keep it inconsistent with what the unions are getting.
And my final was line 39 on revenues, the appropriated fund balance. We'd had conversations about this. The fund balance is in a very healthy state, and this will aid us in making sure that we're hitting these additional expenditures without putting an undue tax burden on the.
Correct. We're using the fund balance to offset any additional increases in property taxes.
Right. And this, and that, the fund balance at the end of the day, after this budget, it will still be well above or well within what the state considers healthy.
The New York State Comptroller recommends, strongly encourages that municipalities keep a fund balance that is 20% of what their estimated budget for the following year would be. We're at 57, almost 58%. And fund balance just basically means, I hate to use the term surplus, but it's essentially the money that you are keeping in abeyance for a rainy day in the event that we have some type of catastrophic need to fix or repair something, and we set that aside. So we're around 57, 58% according to the auditors. And again, the New York State Comptroller believes you should have a minimum of 20%, and they don't want you to keep 80, 90, 100%. We're at a healthy number around 57%.
And I know I said that was my final one, but I'm Bill Brain. So line 27 on revenues, unclassifiable revenues, miscellaneous. I just wondered general categories of that. We're budgeting for it at 15,000. In prior years, it's been higher. It's also been lower. Oh no, it hasn't been lower, but we budgeted a lower amount in the last budget. So I was just wondering where does that money tend to be from?
Off the top of my head, I can't come up with an example, but I will look at that fund and send you a report of what got received in this coming year.
Yeah,
It's
just out of
anything that comes in
curiosity.
that we can't,
That doesn't have a line.
doesn't fit into one
Right.
of the other
Okay.
lines.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Anything else,
Yeah,
sir?
one last thing, and that's this, just to kind of give it a full circle here, because we're down at the budget line. But if you think at the macro level with respect to our bonds and our bands and our RANs, so with our bonds, I bring this up only because as Gene would know, 10, 12 years ago, we were barely keeping our heads above water in regards to our bonds, our bans, and our rents. I think we were to the tune of $7 to $8 million underwater, Gene, if I remember correctly.
Closer to 10.
Okay, closer to 10. So we're in a very healthy position in regards to our bonds. We've got a little bit under $1 million in an EFC water bond. And then with regards to our bans, our bond anticipation notes are about a little bit over 700,000. We'll make some payments this year. So there's no outstanding revenue anticipation notes. So on the long-term financing end, we're in a very, very good position right now. So we've been working on this for many, many years, but it's just very good to know from where we started 12 years ago or 10 years ago at close to $10 million, being down to a little bit over maybe $1.5 million in that vicinity, $1.75 million. So just to keep it at the macro level so you understand.
And I think that's a huge credit to prior boards for doing that, because everybody deals with different things, in the period of austerity that this village went through for about a 10-year period to kind of get us back above water has been huge. I think it's also important to note the accountant that sat down who handles our annual audit from Nugent and Hausler sat down with the village treasurer and myself to go over this, and I'll give you the quote from him. It was, "The village is in a very healthy position right now." And again, that's not for what we did this past year. That's for the past decade of conservative fiscal views on how we spent money and not having to reduce services. I took a deep dive. I met with the supervisor in the town, took a deep dive into his budget because their budget is due several months before ours. So it kind of gave me an idea on where they were tweaking things, moving things, what they were doing to handle, surpluses and shortfalls and things like that. The town has, I think, a budget somewhere around $17 million. Understanding the village is made up of a population of only 25% of what the town has. And our budget, if you look at combining the water department, the water budget with our general budget, we're at $7.6 million. So that's a pretty big budget. And I hope that the residents understand that we take a look at each of these lines here because we understand that we're spending your money and, not to spend things frivolously, but $7.6 million. So with that being said, again, I'll give a final thank you to the department heads for keeping their budgets tight and yet still making sure that everything we ask for from this village board gets done. And thank the village treasurer again, because this is a grind that she went through. Even though I'm the chief budget officer, she does all the heavy lifting. And at this point, this will be the only point in time tonight where you have an opportunity to speak. But if you would like to speak to a particular issue on this, we generally give 3 minutes. As long as you're advancing the ball and as long as you've got points to make, I will let you continue longer than that for this exercise. But you can step up to the microphone up here. We just ask that you state your name and your residence, your address for the record, and then you can have at it. So at this point, I'll open it up for public comment related to the budget. Does any?
Make a motion to open the public hearing.
I was just reminded I have to make an official motion for that. So I'd like to make a motion to open up for public comment related to the budget. May I have a second? Further discussion? All in favor? Aye. All right. Anybody wish to speak related to the budget? Stop it. Stop it. All right. Well, seeing that there is no one that wishes to speak at this point in time, I am going to make a motion to close the public comment. Close public comment, and then follow that up by closing the public hearing related to the 2023-2024 proposed budget. May I have a second?
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. So, moving on. Next item, we're going to move into, now I'm treating this as a work session, so all the trustees have copies of the minutes related to the November 30th, 2022 special meeting and the December 19th, 2022 business meeting. Those will be voted on and entered into the record at the business meeting, which I'm going to remind the public is not next Monday due to Martin Luther King's birthday, the federal holiday that it is. It will be Monday, January 23rd, the business meeting. So it's 2 weeks from tonight. Okay, so in related to that, the first resolution that we have now is to approve a request to hold a wedding ceremony at our Donahue Farm property on August 26th of 2023. Each of the board members is in possession of this. I'll give you the highlights. This is the O'Leary Stories wedding rundown. The site is obviously going to be the Donahue Farm property where we own somewhere close to 50 acres. The date is August 26, 2023. The time requested, 3:30 to 10 p.m., and a total guest count of 70 people. The setup will be primarily that morning. Their plan is to get married in the field behind the main barn structure, and their plan is also to rent a very large tent in the event of inclement weather, along with tables, chairs, and portable bathrooms. They'd like to plug into village electric at the site if possible to run lights. We do not have electric there yet. So as an addendum to that, they're going to provide the generators and provide their own electric unless by August next year, we are able to get electric. What's that, Dave?
This year.
I'm sorry, August this year, you're right, it's January. We're able to get electric down there. Obviously, our plan is to get electric there, so that could be a moot point. They'll have a PA system set up and a couple of speakers. This I appreciated greatly since we all live next to each other and near each other. They specifically state that they will be considered their neighbors and follow village noise ordinances. They understand that the structures on the property at this juncture, and there are 4 structures, one of which is someone lives in it, but the other 3 structures that we have are not open to the public as yet, as we are fixing them, shoring them up, and repairing and renovating them. So they understand they're not allowed in there. They would like to serve food and alcohol to their guests and will secure all the necessary permits. They have agreed to prepare and to purchase a general liability insurance policy and provide that to the village. They've been working very closely with the head of the rec department in the town of Cornwall, the lovely Phyllis Murphy. Miss Murphy, I believe, was the last person to actually get married at the Donahue Farm property, so there's a nice little link there, and they'll continue to coordinate with her. They understand there's a usage fee that needs to be paid to the village of Cornwall and Hudson. I think in concert with the committee, we settled on $500 for the space. They will leave the site as they found it, or better, as the Boy Scouts say, and they look forward to it. So with that said, I'd like to pass a resolution on this, but I want to open this up really quickly because we have not done something like this to date with the Donahue Farm property since the village is the owner of the property. Does any trustee have an issue, a gripe, a concern, or something they want to add?
I believe they're both Cornwall graduates too, right?
They both are Cornwall graduates?
They're graduates of the school system, so, which is nice.
Good. Bill?
Yeah, I think the committee has definitely viewed this as a proof of concept for the idea of whether it's okay and possible to hold such events at the farm. And there've been other proof of concept type events. So I personally think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
And just, if anybody on the live stream is listening, the fee is a proof of concept fee. If we prove the concept, it is unlikely to remain at that modest rate for
Forever,
potential
in perpetuity.
for potential future events.
Okay. Anybody else? Jimmy?
No, I'm good with it.
Dave, any issues? Billy, any issues?
Nope.
All right, then I am going to make a motion that we allow the O'Leary Stories wedding to take place on August 26, 2023, between the hours of 3:30 p.m. to 10 p.m., understanding they will be setting up earlier than that for 70 persons, and other details to be worked out, with the acknowledgement that they will pay $500 permit fee for the use. And Jimmy, is there anything I'm missing? Oh, all right, Gene just gave it to me. So let me this would be much more succinct. I'm going to move that we approve a request from Jessica Estorius and Kevin O'Leary to hold their wedding ceremony at Donahue Farm on August 26, 2023, between the hours of 3:30 p.m. to 10 p.m. The approval is subject to the applicant's submittal of all necessary permits, satisfactory inspections of vendors and/or tents by the code enforcement officer, and payment of the $500 one-time special permit fee. May I have a second?
Second.
Further discussion?
Just one question, and I know we had it from, did you have a specific time? Because just in case they need to set up this tent.
Between 3:30 and 10 for the
Okay, so they
event,
can
but
set
they,
the tent
they asked to
in the
set
10
up
in the morning.
earlier in the morning.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. Good. No,
Okay.
I was thinking if they had to set up the day before, but we're good to go.
Okay. Did I have a second?
Yes.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Thank you for that. Okay, moving on to the next item. Village election, March 21st, 2023, to set the polling place and time. And I think this is something that I'm extremely proud of this board for, although it's making it hard for our election workers. But we as a board determined last year, I forget when we actually approved it, but we wanted to expand hours in the village. Village traditionally has held its elections in March and held them from 12 p.m. to 9 p.m. And recognizing that we are a bedroom community to New York City and to the military academy, and there are often people that leave early in the morning, we tried to make it a little more accommodating for them. We've expanded our hours by 6 hours, so from 9 hours to 15 hours. So we will open and take votes at 6 a.m., and we will take the last vote. As long as you are in line by 9 p.m., you will be allowed to vote here. So notice is hereby given that voting for the annual election will take place in the Edward C. Moulton Jr. Meeting Room, where we are right now, of the Village of Cornwall and Hudson, 325 Hudson Street, Cornwall and Hudson, New York, on the 21st day of March 2023, between the hours of 6 a.m. and 9 p.m. So, I'd like to propose a resolution that what I just read regarding the polling place and time for our annual election in the village, that we set that time in place. May I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, moving on. Next item of business is moving on to the monthly department reports. Gene, you're here. Everybody, normally at the work sessions, you are not, and we read through and look at your treasure report. Is there anything in that treasure report that jumps out, or anything that you think the trustees should be focused on or note?
No, it's just your basic statement. You'll notice as we're getting toward the end of the year, they're starting to even out revenues and expenditures. At the beginning of the year, you note that we gain most of our revenue for the general fund up front with taxes. So by the end of the fiscal year, everything starts to get back onto a level playing field, and I think that's what you're gonna start to see for the next few reports.
Okay.
And bearing in mind for the public, since I notice this every meeting, the fiscal year ends at the end of March.
End of
so
February.
End of February, see? So when I see the numbers sort of evening out, but not close to 100%, I get confused when we're at the end of a calendar year. So just in case anybody else didn't know that, like I didn't know that.
Any other trustee with any questions in regards to the treasurer report? Okay, as I stated at the top of the meeting, Code Enforcement Officer / Building Inspector Manny Carmona is not here tonight. In fact, he just left. He was working today. Trustees, take a look at the report for December 2022. It's in your packet. Looks consistent with what he's doing. He was handling a number of issues today. I think with the return of Megan Gishwin to the front office of the DPW building, we're going to start to be back on track and not be behind on things, because her being away for 2 months while she gave birth, she had a healthy baby, which is awesome, but she's come back to work now, and that seems to have helped pick up things like COs and compliance issues, building permits, on-site inspections, all the things that the building inspector does. So any trustee with any questions regarding the Code Enforcement Officer Building Department report? Okay, moving on to the next item, which is the fire company. And again, I said it at the top, but I'd like to welcome Chief Quinn, who was the assistant chief last year and has now assumed the role, voted on by membership and approved by the Cornwall on Hudson Village Fire Commission, and will be the new chief for this next year. Chief, is there anything on this report you think the trustees should note?
Yes, down below, item number 3, I gave Chief Trainer some bad numbers. We actually have 17 firefighters who have made the 50 points for low SAP. I missed 2 because I didn't realize they needed to get points for the military service for half the year.
Okay.
And I do want to emphasize number 4, New York State did pass a permissive law last month that allows municipalities to discount the assessment on the primary homes of volunteer firefighters in the communities that they serve. So that's something that I hope the board will take up. It might help with retention. I do have some numbers not with me, I forgot to bring them. It would actually have a very small impact on the revenue to the village. My rough numbers, about $2,000.
In regards to how many of our volunteers actually live within the village?
Live within the village, and then you're just discounting their assessment, not live within the village, own a home within the village.
Own a home within the village.
Chief, is that based on the minimum of accumulated points that you need to get per year in order to get that?
That's a great question. The law just says active firefighter. I believe it would be up to the village to determine what that is. I think that would be a great standard.
Okay, because that's, my next question was gonna be, it's what does the fire department define as active? I was assuming was the minimum amount, so you accrue a good year, so to speak.
Yeah, so there are folks who don't accrue the 50 points, but are still active firefighters. They have their physical, they go to fires. We define them as active, meaning they're allowed to get on the machine, grab a hose, and put out a fire.
Right.
But the board may not want to consider them active for the purposes of LoSAP.
Okay.
If I could just
Yeah,
interrupt for
sorry.
1 second, the village used to have an exemption for the volunteer firefighters when we were an assessing unit. And then when the village ceased being an assessing
gave it to the
unit,
town,
and
right.
we gave the power to the town did not recognize that village exemption that had been given, and it went away. My questions would be, as we move forward with this, is do we, rather than appeal to this board, do you have to appeal to the
Yeah.
town
Yeah.
board?
That's my question was gonna be, what do we need to do? I mean, I think I've taken a straw poll. I think everybody here is in support of that. But what would we need to do since the assessment happens in the town?
I think
Well,
we'd have to appeal to the town.
Right, but we're the jurisdiction, so.
They do the assessments,
But
they
they do
handle
the
all the
assessment.
exemptions. I think we had to do a little research as to
Yeah.
who the proper authority is to.
I'm certain the village would have to authorize it at a minimum, because it is your revenue that you would be forgiving. We could also talk to the town, see if they would be willing to reduce taxes for volunteer firefighters. And also, the big win for firefighters would be the school
But if New York
district.
State approved this and the governor signed it into law, is it?
It's
is it-
permissive.
It is permissive.
Yeah.
Okay, then that
Do you
explains.
think they might already have it, Charlie, being they have a fire district?
In the town?
Yeah.
They might, I don't know if anyone's brought this up. We have a Battalion 4 meeting coming up. We're gonna bring it up as a subject, and it is the town. The village firefighters also live within the town, and we also live within the school district, and the school district has Village of Cornwall and Hudson, Canterbury Fire District, New Windsor, Vales Gate, and a little bit of Salisbury. So,
Somehow we would have to, because it would affect our tax revenue.
There just needs, we need to do a
Yeah.
little bit of background.
One last question about the LoSAP, Charlie, and that is, you advised it's 17 rather than 13, so for the purposes of the budget, is the LoSAP based?
it's $480 a person, so it's gonna have very low budgetary impact.
Okay, so, but I'm just checking, so the number that's in the budget right now is based on the 13 rather than the 17?
I don't know, you probably made it up before.
Oh, my, okay, all right.
And we got a LoSAP discussion coming up in a few minutes, and we'll tackle that.
Okay.
And just on item 4, just since my brain had to cycle it twice, it's a 10% exemption for property value assessments, not a 10% discount on the total tax bill, property tax bill. It is
Correct, but, it's effectively, it works out to be the same, I think.
Yes, it would be.
All right, anything else on regarding the fire department report for this month?
No.
Nope. All right, moving on. Police report. Chief, anything jumps out, anything the trustees need to be aware of?
Not at the present time. I mean, we had some in-house training for juvenile laws and procedures, which was very worthwhile as they can be quite confusing. So the course that the officers took helped to clarify a lot of questions.
Good. And you and I and Sergeant Pena are on tap tomorrow at 1 o'clock?
12:30.
12:30. Okay, good. All right, any trustees, any questions for the chief? All right, moving on to the Department of Public Works. So first of all, I'd like to say thank you to the DPW because on their day off, which was the Friday prior to Christmas, we had a bit of a weather event, I think, which is the polite way of saying a deluge of rain, which really the parts of the village that were impacted the worst, other than people's basements and yards, was Shore Road, as well as Mountain Road. And the guys did a great job. Dave brought half his crew in, over half his crew that day, who were off that day, to mitigate that, to clean out culverts and to keep the water running. Unfortunately, it did destroy parts of some people's driveways as you come down Mountain Road. And then a temporary patch was placed where the trailhead is. So as you head up Mountain Road before the trail onto that the public land there, that trailhead, there's a culvert underneath the road. They made emergency repairs last Friday, sorry. They came in because the weather was nice, and they made some semi-permanent repairs, which meant tearing up half of the roadway, funneling traffic in and around there, and having the Nini and Callahan do some excavation work under there, clear some stuff out, take out an old gas pipe, which has been there for more than a minute, remove that, which will hopefully alleviate some of the blockage. And then the plan is in the spring to actually have to cut into that road and make a permanent repair there. So the repair there now should hopefully mitigate another similar type storm like that, but for the future. The plan is to do this to help out people that live at 131, 133, and 103, because their houses did take a pounding from the water that rushed over the culvert, washed down the road, and then washed into their yards. Did I get that right, Dave?
Yeah, what there was an abandoned 8-inch gas main that Central Hudson had run through a box culvert, which a lot of stuff came down the stream, got jammed up in there and blocked this culvert up. So instead of the water running through, it went over and down the road and washed a lot of stuff out. We could not open it up by conventional means. So as you said, we came in on the holiday there, and I had guys in. I had 5 guys in, myself, and we also had 2 guys from the water department that assisted us. They were in doing something else. We worked 11 hours on the 23rd of December. We excavated the road, were able to open it up, secure it enough so that the traffic could go by. And then we, later on this past week, we were able to get Central Hudson up there, confirm that it was an abandoned gas line, cut it out of the way, and I had the engineer up there as well. They're gonna start a design of a new box culvert to install there. We're looking to hopefully July, August, when there's no school in session, so we can actually shut Mountain Road down, because we're gonna have to shut the road down completely to do the install. So we're kinda hoping we can fit that in.
Push it from
In
the
that
spring
time
to the
frame.
end of the summer.
Central Hudson's gonna be doing some work on the in-service gas main that's on Mountain Road. They're going to be replacing a big section of it. So the part that's actually in service alongside that culvert, I've made contact with their head engineer. We're looking at getting that moved at the same time, so it's out of the way, and we will have no further issues.
Dave, what about Shore Road? And I understand when we get tidal surges and things like that, the water, the volume of water in the Hudson, I get that. Is there anything you think in the future that we could do to potentially mitigate some of that washout?
The biggest problem we had with that was very similar to Superstorm Sandy. Everything happened at high tide, full moon cycle. The storm came up the coast. The low pressure was actually driving up the east coast and pushed up into the bay, which backed everything up into the river. And it wasn't just us. We had it. The sewer plant had the same problem. Shore Road was underwater for a while.
Yep.
Until the tide went down.
Okay. All right, what else on your report? I know that was a big piece
That-
of what
that-
you
I
guys
mean-
been working on, but anything else these guys need to know?
No, that's pretty much the highlight. We were gonna be working with the engineer on that, and obviously, we've already put our budget together, so that project is gonna be an unbudgeted expense that we're gonna have to deal with and move some stuff around, but we'll make it work.
Understood. All right, outstanding. Okay, moving on to the water department. Obviously, Superintendent Trainer is not here. Any trustees have any comments or questions? I'll do the best I can to answer them. You can see what type of work the water department's been doing for the month of December and the training they've been getting. Anybody got any questions? Mike will be able to more fully brief this, obviously, at the business meeting, but this is the report. All right, next and last but not least, New Windsor EMS and Cornwall EMS. So this morning, the town supervisor and myself and Kurt Hahn, who is our Office of Emergency Management Coordinator for the village, as well as Chief Michael Bigg and EMT Pilas, who maintains and is essentially in charge of the 1 Clinton Street location, the old Kovac building, which is now the Cornwall EMS building. And we had a 6-month report, and we sat down and we talked about where we expected them to be and where they were. And so I'll just tick off a couple of things which I thought might be interesting to the public and, well, certainly to this board. The New Windsor EMS budget for 2023 is over $3 million. They're predicting to break even for 2023, just as they did in 2022. Bill, you don't have a copy of this. This is, yeah, if you're looking for it, and I can make copies for you guys, but this is mine. The 2023, they project that the Cornwall operation, meaning the 1 Clinton Street operation here, to be positive by $60,000 at the end of this year, and their overall budget to be positive by $20,000. They gave us some of the highlights of what they've done. Seeing what's happened at that 1 Clinton Street location from where it was to where it is now, it is awe-inspiring. The entire building's been cleaned out. The kitchen has been redone. A lot of this is volunteers, and a lot of this is the town and village helping out in, you know, either with grant money or just using our manpower and our label to do things. All new kitchen appliances, many of them donated, many of them through grants. Kitchen's been redone, new blinds throughout the building, new landscaping, brand new sign out front. The heat and the AC, which were broken, are now both repaired. Flooring's redone in the office and lounge, and new outside lights. Regarding operational and administrative, 100% of calls covered. And again, that's the gold standard. That's the metric that we expect from our EMS. 100% of calls covered for this period of time, 423 in Cornwall, 91 in Cornwall and Hudson. I asked for a breakdown on what the average monthly calls were. 15 to 20 in Cornwall and Hudson, 65 to 85 in the town. Average response time, 7.11 minutes. 2 brand new ambulances brought online. Drive cameras installed on all the ambulances. The con approval from, and I can't remember what HVREMSCO means, but we received the con. The con is important. It allows them to operate as the primary first responder service here in Cornwall, and we were able to secure that. Narcan and community CPR classes held, 3 CPR saves, many other positive patient outcomes. Town of Cornwall resident Karen Edelman-Reyes, who is a brilliant lawyer. I've known her for a long time, from back when she was an assistant district attorney and I was the FBI chief up here. She has been appointed to the board as one of their members. It's a 5-person board right now, and she sits there and she looks out for Cornwall. Last, they passed both their New York State DOH inspections. That's the Department of Health. That's pretty critical when you have EMS services. And their DBA, or the doing business as, for Cornwall EMS has been secured. Areas that still need to be addressed. There's some broken doors there that they're trying to get fixed, and they need a keyless access and camera system, which they're working on now. Bathrooms are to be painted this spring, new floors in the hallways, repair a couple of windows in the lounge, and then some outdoor work on the curbs and sidewalks. So, outstanding job by Chief Big, who runs NUVAC, or New Windsor Volunteer Ambulance Corps, and is also the umbrella organization over Cornwall EMS. They've done an outstanding job. Any questions, any issues from trustees regarding emergency medical services in the village of Cornwall and Hudson? Outstanding. All right, next item of business is other business. This is what you guys have been waiting for. So, I want to say that at first we didn't know for sure if we needed to have a resolution for this or if it was really essentially just other business at this juncture. So, this village board appointed a committee, a Donahue Farm committee, and I called it like Noah's Ark. We tried to get one or two of everything. We have one, from all the different walks of life in the village as well as in the town. We had 2 senior folks that were attached to us as advisors. We had a separate silo, excuse the pun, that was set aside for historical matters. And then we had a committee that went through several iterations. Billy, it started with 9, it's worked down now to 7. And we've actually gone through some changes in leadership. People have issues coming up. These are volunteers. They're not getting paid 1 red cent. They meet the last Tuesday of every month. And Dave Work was the last guy to get appointed after they played musical chairs and there was no chair left. But Dave Work has stepped up, replaced Aaron Cousins, who was the original chair, who was then replaced by the acting chair, Christy Larkin, and then Dave has taken over. And I see that that Mr. Poindexter and Dr. Liebert and obviously Dave Work are all here. And what I want to say is each of the trustees received a copy of this weekend. It is voluminous, and as a guy who has been the chair of a few things in my life and had to draft things like this is exceedingly well done. This is a roadmap. The committee has been meeting, Billy, how many months?
I think it's, I want to say 21?
21 months. They've been working, not getting paid, coming in here, having meetings, and coming up with a plan and a roadmap. This is draft version number 1. The village board is not going to speak to any of the matters in this tonight. We are going to thank the committee for their hard work. We're going to dig into this, and then the village board is going to make some decisions predicated on what we can take out of here and use. And got smart people on the committee. They did a super job. I've given this a precursory read-through. And that's what I'll say. Thank you, folks, for what you did. I'm excited about it. This will be a public document, so people will be able to look at it, and the board will discuss this in open session. So, and the committee meetings, which I assume, will there still be committee meetings, or will you guys await the first round of read-throughs and edits?
I think we're gonna see how that goes.
Got it. But so, I'll open it up to other members of the board, but outstanding job. Thank you for what you've done. Really, this board could not have done it without a group of volunteers that were dedicated to doing this, and thank you. It's a great product. Jimmy?
No, it's it's very good. I quickly read through major portions of it. I just had one question, and that is in regards to the different buildings. Did the engineers look at each one, like the ice house and the kennel, or just mainly the barn?
I think they evaluated the main barn, whether they evaluated things like the kennel and other ones, it's not clear to me. Formally, we've walked through those informally.
Right, no, I gathered that. I was just, some of your recommendations in regards to the ice house and the kennel, I was just wondering, was that, like, in regards to the kennel, was it based on, we can get into it, but I just wanted to know, was it based on the engineers looking at, or just you guys going in and saying, well, this is, this is too far along to really be completely repaired.
I don't
Right.
believe we have a formal recommendation from the engineer on this, but when you get in there and look at the condition of it, there are a variety of members of the committee that have quite a bit of experience in these matters. That structure in particular is in pretty rough shape.
Got it. Okay, understood. Okay, thank
But-
you. It's very, very well written so far.
But our roof
Excellent.
is watertight now, right, on the barn? That's what we're,
Half done.
yeah. Excellent.
Steel is on half.
Dave, anything to add? Dave?
No, I was down there and it looks good.
And I'd
I
also,
haven't had a chance to read the report.
okay. I'd also be remiss in not thanking trustee Brain, who volunteered to be the village board's liaison and has attended the meetings and engaged with the committee and kept this board in the loop. Bill, anything to add in regards to us accepting this document?
No, these folks have worked very hard and have done a huge amount of evaluation. As I bulleted out a lot of what they had done for an announcement that was on the village Facebook page a couple of months ago, just in addition to the recommendations that they've compiled, they did that by becoming intimately familiar with the property and really going through a lot of inputs from the community through a community survey, from many conversations that they had with people, stakeholders of all kinds. Scenic Hudson was involved in discussions around, what can and can't be done according to the governing documents, as well as what the overall tenor of the property is. So these guys have done an amazing amount of work that's not even really reflected in the 18 pages of this document. So it's terrific. Good job.
So let me throw this out there. Recognizing that we have a water committee that we just established, and they've got the next almost 5 months to conduct their business and report back to this board. As the board digs into this and obviously reads, into more detail on this, I'm sure there's gonna be more questions. Are there any suspense dates that you sense right now where you're like, hey, Jimmy, by March 1st, we need an answer on such and such because this is gonna happen? Is there anything right now that we need to put on the calendar and have an answer or make a decision on that you guys can think of off the top of your head?
I don't think so. I think the primary thing that, in terms of timing, is to move forward with the governance structure. We're basically recommending moving from a planning committee where we're solely focused on what are we gonna do with the property, to more of an operating committee, where maybe potentially different work streams might involve improvements to the property, but things like managing the wedding, or managing those types of things. That's probably what we recommend doing at the earliest.
Has there been any discussion put forth in regards to potentially conjoining the Riverfront Committee with the Donahue Farm Property Committee? I've had a couple of residents mention to me and say, hey, you got a lot of the same people on different committees. Is there any thought, is that a utilitarian look at this, that it makes sense to do that, or at least explore it?
Recommended in the
Yeah.
planning document.
As you say, the issues overlap pretty significantly. You'll see in the document, we recommend, for example, adopting the Donahue Waterfront Park process for permitting of events in this project. These issues are all overlap pretty significantly, and as whoever noted that to you, the membership of those committees.
The concern was, would there be pushback? Because sometimes people, any kind of change is a bad thing. Are there any thoughts as to what the pushback would be on conjoining those?
We've talked to members of all the committees, and there's only the committee membership is very similar, so I don't think it would be.
Okay, all right.
The chair of both committees is.
I'll bet he would. I'll bet he would. All right, sounds good. So if there's no suspense dates, give us a little bit of time to go through this a little closer, and I will put together a timetable so that you guys aren't sitting out there going, we gave him a document, we've heard nothing. We will, let me take a look, talk to the board probably at the next work session, and then come up with an idea on when we need to have, what our thoughts are and what direction we want to go. But thank you so much. All right. Okay, next item of business, and I see the Lynches out in the audience right now. I thought you were here to gripe about the budget, and now I know that you're not here to gripe about the budget, because I know both of you. All right, so the next matter before this board, since we're treating this is a work session, is a discussion of a potential traffic control device or a different traffic control device at the corner of Weeks and Willis. So I'm pretty sure I look around here, and these are all Cornwall and Hudson people. People know where it is. But Willis is just on the other side of the Quigley Sullivan Funeral Home. It runs perpendicular, it runs down into St. Thomas Church. And if you go up that hill where the Lynches are residents, it runs into a street called Weeks. Now, I went up there last week after, sir, you'd come in here and talk to me, and then I stopped by the house, and ma'am, I talked to you, and I took some pictures which I have provided to the village board so that all of them know this area, but so that they have an idea of what we're talking about. At the top of Willis, there is a yield sign, which, as you're going up Willis, you run into a yield sign. There's no other traffic control device on Weeks. So that intersection, which essentially is a perpendicular intersection or a T intersection, there's nothing else. There's not another stop sign, there's not a yield sign in any other direction. I talked to some people that said they had thought that back in the day, now I don't know what that means. For me, that would be the 70s. For someone else, it could be earlier or later. But back in the day, there was either a yield sign or a stop sign on Weeks. Dave, do you recall that?
No, I actually brought the code book with me just in case this came up.
Okay, so, and since this is a work session and we can engage with you, so my question is, in looking at it, do you think, because you're there all the time, do you think that changing that yield sign, because this will require a public law, which I have no problem with in the safety realm as long as the board agrees, do you think that changing that sign from a yield sign to a stop sign would make a difference? The concern here is speeders.
Yes.
You do?
Has there been accidents there?
Not accidents, but Dave, there'll be times I'll back our van to the edge of the driveway. I'll check both directions, not a car to be seen.
Oh, and somebody comes around the
Right,
corner.
and I'll back into the road. Before I hit the brake, I have somebody at my back bumper.
Yeah.
So you live on- they live on
There
Willis or-
there are
No,
times
so
today, I
this
was trying
is-
to think of
Yeah,
when
right.
exactly.
You're driving up, there's Howard Prater's
Yeah.
house. Their house is over
People
here.
will
This is
really
Weeks.
bow
And then that is
down
standing at
to
Yeah.
Howard's house and looking
around
down.
So this is, their house is
Yeah.
over here.
Their house is over here.
So they're pulling out this
Yeah,
way.
you missed, one of the pictures that you missed there would be on the right-hand side on the hill is Sarita's house. So in the wintertime,
But that's where the yield sign is.
Yeah, this
It's in
is- this
Sarita's
is-
Yes.
house. Yeah,
oh,
that's.
there it is,
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Well, but it doesn't really show so coming from the upper part of Weeks, the visibility around that corner for someone who's where she is, there's not a lot of visibility there, especially in wintertime. If there's snow that goes all the way around this corner or a snowbank around this corner, people just come around the corner.
I was just gonna say, why isn't there a traffic control device? And if there isn't, was there one in the past?
No, there wasn't.
There wasn't.
My question is this, is
Because
you
it was
live on
quieter.
Willis, right? Is that right?
Yep.
Okay, so, you're not saying that, change the yield sign that's coming up Willis. Are you saying install a stop sign on the other side of Weeks coming down before you make the left onto your street? Is that what you're saying?
No, we're really not recommending anything. We would bow to the experts.
Yeah.
We're telling you that this is an accident waiting to happen.
Mm-hmm.
There are people who walk Weeks, you know, there isn't a time I look out the window.
It's just a bad spot.
There
Yeah,
aren't
especially in
people
winter.
walking pets or
Put
walking
3 feet of
kids.
snow in that yard.
We're a changing neighborhood. There are a lot of women.
That's what it
with
is.
strollers,
Mm.
and
It's a change in neighborhood.
traffic is very, very fast in both directions.
So it's the direction coming up Willis, your house is on the left, or it's the direction of people coming down Weeks and then banging that left and coming down Willis, or both?
Coming,
Both.
Both.
you know, coming down out of Weeks Estate affects us. You know,
You're on that
because
side
that's
of
it,
the
they're
street.
bounding around and then coming down. But we do see people driving up there, they're hitting the accelerator to get up back there.
Chief?
Dave, I think you asked if there's been an accident there. I know of at least one in the past couple of years. I don't think it was your property, but the one up,
Above us.
the car coming around the corner went into the front lawn, hit the tree, thank goodness, instead of continuing on into the house. So there has been an accident up there.
To me, it would make sense that if you're gonna put it, you put it on the downside of.
It would be on, yeah,
Prevent them.
Yeah.
They gotta slow down. to
Right,
make the
before they
left.
make the left
Yeah.
coming
Yeah.
down. But then why not make that a stop sign
You
too?
could.
I mean,
I don't-
again, we don't wanna make laws just to create laws, but does this make sense?
I mean, it's-
well, the only thing is, if you're putting a stop sign there, you're not really accomplishing anything.
Wait, but a
Because
stop
there's
sign
only
where?
two houses.
Where the yield sign
Yeah,
is?
changing that to a stop sign doesn't really accomplish that much, because there's only two houses at the bottom of that street.
You mean, you're saying.
So there's no traffic going,
If you make
I
a
mean-
left onto Weeks.
Oh, if you make a left,
no,
no, there's more than,
Yeah,
there's more than
that-
two, there's like
Yeah, I'm
five.
just- Yeah, we're just
Four,
saying,
five.
we're saying coming, if we're saying you're going up Willis, you change that to a stop sign. When you make the right-hand turn on the Weeks, to me, it would be a stop sign on the other
Side.
side.
Yeah.
Coming down.
So that's
Coming
two
down,
stop
yeah,
signs,
yeah.
stop signs and removing a yield sign. Bill, you were saying something.
I was just gonna say, somewhat to Dave's point, the yield sign at the corner of Willis, when you come up Willis and you're making a right on Weeks, there's a yield sign. But to whom are you yielding is
You're
the
not
question.
yielding to anybody.
And it's just a couple of houses that are down the hill on Weeks where somebody might be coming up there. There's no other traffic
Right.
in your way.
Yeah.
So, and again, the same thing with the stop sign. The only difference is that people see a yield sign and they think it's a yellow light, not a red light. So,
right.
so if you, now that's not gonna slow people down when they pass your house, cause they're gonna drive up the hill and then stop at the stop sign, maybe. So they're already past Willis.
But if
But I
they
agree
see the
with Jim.
stop sign.
At the top, you're coming down Weeks, that's probably the biggest, you're building up the most speed, coming downhill,
Yeah.
down Weeks, making that left. It's a wide turn, you feel like you have a
Yep.
lot of room.
Yep.
I love it, I mean, no. But maybe that's where it would make the most sense.
So you're talking about on Weeks, like on Howard Protter's side of the property,
Right
across
by that
that
tree,
street.
right there.
Yes, Dave, right there where you're pointing. Yes, okay. So if that makes sense,
If-
Dave, what does the code say or what does it not say? Where do we run afoul here?
We don't run afoul. You can, as a board, do whatever you want, but the New York State Vehicle and Traffic Law, they don't encourage you to use stop signs as a mean of traffic calming.
Traffic what?
Calming.
Traffic calming.
They don't encourage that. The four-way intersection, stuff like that,
Yes.
but this is, whatever you guys wanna do is fine with me. When we discussed this earlier, when you had said, the yield sign to a stop sign, my first comment to you was, I'm not sure that's what Mr. Lynch is talking about, because I don't think that's going to affect him in the way that,
I agree. I actually think that, as Jim Kane pointed out and Bill buttressed that point, that putting the stop sign on the other side of Weeks so that you've got to stop and you can't just roll around that corner and come down that hill, that probably makes the most sense.
It does.
Well, but if the code doesn't recommend using a stop sign for traffic calming, what other options are? There's speed limit signs, there's yellow arrows, there's, warning signs of various kinds, just to make it
Speed
clear
bumps.
that it's
We went
narrow
through
the road at the
We
turn.
went through this exercise about 10 years ago, right, Dave, with Avenue A, where Bill
Yes.
Fogarty lives.
yes.
Putting a stop sign there because people are speeding down that road, and we talked about a speed bump, and then you would be launched. The same thing would happen on Weeks, you couldn't do it there.
We ended up with the three-way stop.
Yeah, you do it once, right?
Okay, so my thinking is, what I'm hearing is that even though New York State suggests that you don't use traffic
For traffic
devices
calming.
as to calm, but we're doing this to prevent a head-on collision. It's not for calming. It's to prevent a fatality or an accident, as we could reasonably envision happening. So the board can make that.
Yes.
There has to be a public hearing.
Yes.
So that if anybody wants to show up with pitchforks and torches from your street and fight against it, that can happen. I think one stop sign there, leave the yield sign alone, put a stop sign on Weeks. I think that might be a potential solution.
Will help.
It will help. Is that, Mr. and Mrs. Lynch, is that something that would satisfy you guys?
I think that as a side effect, it will calm traffic.
Don't use that
Don't
word.
use that word.
Side effect.
You know, I travel going into Newburgh, two streets that I could make note of. A back way to Coles. There's a stop sign right near their Knights of Columbus.
Yes, I know where that is. Yes,
Why was it put there?
yeah. Probably
It's in
because
the middle
people,
of nowhere, right?
because people probably use that as the
People were
Indianapolis
buzzing
500.
on that road. And then another, on the road, that same route towards Aldi's.
Clarkwood.
And it's a purely residential.
Yep,
Little ranch houses.
Yep,
And that
Deal
too.
Plaza.
yeah,
You
yes.
can't just go,
Yeah.
hit the accelerator, hit 60.
My
You
favorite.
have to make that stop.
Okay.
So,
Yep. Look, I mean, if it's one sign, I don't, Dave?
I just want to, I'm not against it. I was
Yeah.
just putting that out there.
No, I got
that-
it. But there's nothing there that
They-
specifically states
they-
that the village board cannot pass a law to put a
Correct.
stop sign in if they feel that it might be a difference maker in the safety realm.
Are there other best practices recommended by the state? If they say, well, don't use a stop sign for this purpose, do they
You
then
don't
say,
want a flashing
use
light
this?
Well, splash,
Right, no.
No, but they use those warning lights.
Stop sign.
yeah.
Is there any-
I think the answer here is a stop sign.
It sounds like
All right,
pretty
all right, so
straightforward.
Dave, I know that I've gone through this exercise once as the mayor when we put the no parking sign on Churchill. And is it the same process to do this?
Yes.
Okay.
I will contact the attorney, if this is what we wanna do, I will contact the attorney, we'll get the language drawn up with the addresses and
And we'll have to
the,
put it.
the correct intersections.
And we'll
We're
have to have a
going to do
public hearing.
just one
Yep,
on weeks.
on Weeks, as you're coming down Weeks,
I'll get my bearings straight, but yeah, we're
Yep.
coming down.
yes.
So you won't have a stop coming up.
We'll leave the yield sign there, I mean.
No, there'll be no stop coming up.
No,
Up Weeks. No, up Willis.
up Willis.
Or Willis,
You're talking about coming
or
up
Weeks.
Weeks from the.
Yeah,
from
there'll
the-
be no stop coming up weeks.
Stop in there.
There isn't one now.
Yeah,
Be just coming down
yes,
and leave the yield sign.
Yes.
yes.
Okay.
Mr. and Mrs. Lynch,
Just
was
as long
that-
as I get my,
Are you okay with us doing that?
better than nothing.
100%. Everything's about little victories, right? So, okay.
Wonder,
So let-
meantime, if, do we have the radar enforcement signs available? We have one or two of those?
we have two of those.
Can we, is there any interest? I mean, it's not a very high traffic area, but it's
You've got,
obviously a problem spot, cause nobody can
but
go around.
one of the things with that is unless we get some type of accoutrement to go with it is we mount them on the state signs that are
Right, so
two
you know
poles.
what
And
the-
there's
the
not
speed
something
limit is.
there, but you know,
This may encourage them to go faster because they don't know what the speed limit is, so.
yeah. All right, so if you guys are okay with that, we're gonna move on, and what we'll do is we'll get this drafted up by our attorney, all the language for this. We'll hold a public hearing, which probably, is there a shot we can do this by January 23rd? Do we need to push this to February?
You'd have to introduce a
it'll
local law.
probably be in March, the hearing will probably be in March.
Okay? Unfortunately, bureaucracies, even small ones like this, grind to a halt, but we are on it.
Wonderful for spring.
There you go. All right. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and move on. Next item of business is the sewer system mapping. Dave, you and I kind of briefly touched on that and the sewer manhole repairs this morning. Anything you want to brief the board on where we are on both?
We're, the manholes that we have to do the rehab on, I think I have about 6 of them right now that we're looking at.
Remember, guys, this is in the Homeland area of the village, and these, as you go into the manholes, there was a problem in them because they didn't have things called benches placed in them, and we were going to retrofit those with benches, which pushes the flow of water so that it moves at a quicker clip and goes in the right direction, as opposed to just sitting raw fetid sewage, down in the bottom of the manhole.
Better direction between pipe to pipe.
Better direction between pipe to pipe.
Unfortunately, I mean, with what happened up on the mountain, I pulled the engineer from where we were starting to talk about that to number one priority now is to get the design for the box culvert on the mountain. That's number one priority right now.
Okay. And Mr. and Mrs. Lynch,
We need to get that going.
while I'm happy you're here, it's okay for you guys to leave if you want to, okay? No one's gonna have any problems with that. You were here for one thing, so, all right?
I think Mrs. Lynch enjoys this.
She'd rather put a sharp stick in her eye than listen to me.
Dave, Ronna, that's the same that goes to you guys. If you feel like you don't want to stay here and listen
Yeah,
to
I
us,
hope you
please
know that.
don't feel like you need to accommodate.
I should have said that too, yeah,
Dan
absolutely.
Poindexter, you have to stay, though.
Yes, you do.
You don't come enough, we have to make you stay here.
Have something they wanna ask us.
Yeah, we don't use.
All right, so Dave, so regarding the benches, we are looking at doing that, and that's something we can do during the winter.
We're still gonna move forward on it, but unfortunately, I think
Understood.
number one priority is to get the design going
Gotcha.
first, because I wanna coordinate that with school being out in the summer.
Definitely.
As one of our trustees knows, that buses don't like turning around.
Okay, and then in regard to the mapping, that is something else that Jason was gonna do for us, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
we had
Oh,
discussed that
that's
with
not a
Jason as
bad
well,
idea, Bill.
and
That's not.
that's a broader picture. That's gonna take a little more to get done.
Okay, and that's something similar to what we just had done for our water system, where unfortunately in the village, we're operating off of pen and ink drawings from a notebook. Dave, 1930? What was the year?
The thirties, it was put in, it was actually done on actually, most of the maps that I have are on pages about the same size as our
Yeah.
code book.
So we thought it might be a good idea to actually have our engineers actually map out the sewer system so that we can,
Digitize it, make it available, that we could actually have it on a tablet or something, so we
Yeah.
could look up
instead of the,
and get proper
instead of the
measurements.
guesstimates we've been dealing with. Okay, all right, that's fine on those two. Any of the trustees have anything on the sewer system mapping or the sewer manhole repairs? Understand where we are in those? Okay, next item, the proposed pumper tanker for the fire department. I think we're pushing to have a resolution in 2 weeks, but we're still waiting on the bid document from Joe in regard to the Sourcewell contract, or am I wrong on that?
Well, the board's gonna have to accept some sort of document from Sourcewell about what they're providing for that amount of money. So the board can accept the actual item to be
Proposal, yeah.
purchased alongside of a bond resolution. So that's the piece I need to get next.
Okay,
We are okay to use them as the contract.
It has been determined that yes. So the board needs to accept what it is you're looking to do with the proposal on paper of what it includes and what it's gonna cost.
okay, and we're just waiting on Joe for that, Gene, I think?
Well, I think the department and Joe to they have to put that
So
together.
we'll get that from.
Yeah, and then Joe will come up with the line.
The Pierce representative, a couple weeks ago to iron out a few last small details are gonna get us a final price.
Okay.
Hopefully before the price goes up again in February.
And I know that it keeps going up. So yeah, just a formal proposal of what it is you're looking to do. Have them lock in a price for as long as they will, 30 days, 60 days, I don't know at this point how long they'll even lock in. And just so that the board can accept it and we can
And,
get this moving.
and work backwards from January 23rd. That's the date we'd like to get all that formally done. So that gives them 2 weeks. Okay, LoSAP, which we briefly touched on. LoSAP is the Length of Service Award Program. Chief, you said the numbers changed from 13 to 17, I believe?
That's different than this discussion. This discussion is about changing the type of structure, the structure of the LoSAP from a defined contribution to a defined benefit plan.
And if I may ask, because I know we had to wait until January 1st in order to start the ball rolling with getting a public referendum. So that's something we'd like the board to do in January, so I need some language as to what is gonna change so that when we go in January and say to the public, we'd like to put a referendum on this year's ballot about making these changes to the systems, how the benefits are calculated, et cetera. we just need to know what to say.
I think Chief Trainer had given that, but
I think Mr. Gaylord has that, but I haven't seen it.
Okay. All right, anything else on that? All right, so those are two things we need to follow up on. All right, moving on to discussion for a future hire of a part-time village planner and an RFP for that. Billy, I know you were talking to, and I saw Jeff Smalls running the other day, didn't get a chance to talk to him, but I know you were talking to Jeff about that in regards to potentially giving us some verbiage on how we would do this RFP?
Yes, and just to confirm, the part-time village planner, we're talking, it's a temporary part-time village planner, right? This is somebody just to help us update the zoning.
Yep.
Yeah, so I did talk at length with Jeff twice. It's taking long for these concepts to penetrate my brain so that I can actually write up some initial language. He and I had talked about, I've got a couple of sources and notes that I took from discussion with him. I'm gonna write up a single page and ask him to look at it and also ask if Joe has any, Joe McKay, attorney for the village, has any comparables that might be of service. But I hereby commit to having some kind of draft in hands prior to our business meeting. Not that we're gonna vote on anything at the business meeting, but I'll give myself a 2-week deadline to get that in.
One of the things, obviously, the village under Mayor Coyne had adopted the master plan, which we had not had for 60 years. But we were looking in the direction of having somebody work for us part-time that could look at some of the, prioritizing some things and then looking at some of the things that we could do in regards to upcoming grants and just to look at what we have on paper and see how we could transmit that into something. I do not have an answer yet, but I do know that New York State's New York Forward Downtown Revitalization Initiative grant, we should be hearing something. We could be as soon as tomorrow. It could be a couple of weeks, but we anticipate that the latest it would be probably Governor Hochul's State of the State address, maybe making those announcements. The town supervisor and myself remain cautiously optimistic that we met all the criteria and then some for us to be in the running for the $4.5 million grant, and it would be split evenly 50-50, which would bring $2.25 million to this village, and that is why, hoping if the stars align, it would be wonderful to have a planner that could look at the funds that we have, what our priorities are, and see about implementing those. So, all right, any other additions to the hiring of the part-time planner? Moving on. Donahue Farm roof replacement project. Billy, do you want to brief that, or do you want one of the attendees here
I
from the
would
committee?
happily defer to the members of the committee who are here, since I have not even seen the green roof on, which people have said is already.
I have
stealing
not
thunder,
either,
but-
so yes, I'm remiss
Drive
too.
down, see how it was going.
Is it Bluff?
Yes.
Bottom line up front, BLUF. Yeah.
So, Dave, jump in here. So the roof, I would say we're approximately a third done with the metal on the roof. About a third. The entire roof, the contractor, one-time carpentry, has removed all of the old roofing. and,
You happy with the color?
The colors.
It's
fine.
perfect.
Yeah, it's
Perfect.
Everybody's happy.
So,
Excellent.
roof's fully waterproof, the building is starting to dry out in sections that were, it does appear that the damage structurally, there wasn't much structural damage, so.
Amazing.
I think we dodged a bullet on that one, and I just heard from the contractor that they expect that by the end of the month, we will be fully covered in metal.
Do we know what year that the barn was built? Late 1800s?
1765.
Not
That
the
far
barn,
back?
No,
That's in
no,
the
no.
front page of that report.
Yeah.
That's
I
not-
thought
Yeah.
the barn was 1850s. but-
I was gonna say, I thought it was sometime in the
Do
1800s.
they know who built
Um,
the Taft?
And what are the,
Somebody asked that question?
and what are the swallows that come back to Capistrano every year, Cornwall and Hudson? What are they gonna do now?
There's a poultry.
The barn swallows, yep.
There's extensive discussion of barn swallow mitigation.
Numbers have to.
Mary must have. Yeah, oh, yeah.
All right, so,
Kathleen should.
I guess last thing, bottom line in front, when do they expect to be done with the repairs? End of January. Excellent, excellent, excellent
along.
news. Took us 2 years, but we finally got there.
And that's approximately $136,000 of the $180,000 that was remained from the purchase and
Right.
budgeted amount.
The
that was
Leaves
done.
us
overlay.
$44,000 for the
Additional stabilization.
stabilization and structural repairs. Yeah.
Started preliminarily
Is there
scoping out
foundations
window
on those other
replacements,
buildings, the
and
bad buildings? No foundation.
walls, and then we should talk power.
Kennel has a slab.
Yeah.
Slab.
Okay. All right. Anything else in regards to the roof replacement project
If anything.
that the board needs to know or should know? No?
Just wanna move forward as a
Love it. Awesome. All right. Moving on, memorial paver stones. This is kind of like a placeholder. The board is still looking at other options for receiving donations from families, usually in memory of a loved one, whether it's a tree or whether it's a bench. You know, we only have so many places for trees and benches, and so we're looking at the possibility of doing some type of memorial paver walk where the village would install them, and then there'd be a company that if a family wanted to pay whatever it was, make a donation, whatever it was, they could get some type of engraving on there, and they could remember a loved one or what, you know, in some place within the village. So we're looking at that. One of the places I thought was Miss Katina, who lost her mother, doesn't live here, but her mother was, I think, graduated from Cornwall and like sometime in like the late 30s or early 40s, died a number of years ago, and she donated the bench, which is right in front of Village Hall. And, you know, just looking at the paver stones in front of, we're just looking at some different ideas. I throw this open to the trustees. Tonight's probably not the night to get deep into it, but if anybody continues to think about ways that we can accept things and memorialize people or do something in remembrance of one of their loved ones, please give us some ideas. Okay, New Year's Eve celebration. In spite of the rain and the fact that the weather did not cooperate, can't thank Mike Trainer, Elizabeth Brewski from the New Year's Eve Ball Drop Committee, Mike obviously from the Special Events Committee, the Yanoni family, all the first responders that helped out. I thought the ball drop was wonderful. I think we estimated somewhere around 1,000 people, and I think we would have had a heck of a lot more if the weather had cooperated a little bit. I think some people elected not to come out or come into Cornwall as a result of the weather. But any other takeaways,
No, it's
guys,
great.
board?
Absolutely
No?
great.
A lot of fun.
It was.
I
It
had a
was.
plastic cup this time, as I pointed out to Mr. Halverson.
I forgot about that. All right, moving on. For your information, the village staff, of which I am a part of, and am so looking forward to this 3-hour training tomorrow on, what is it again? Sexual harassment, workplace violence, and what other things?
Bloodborne pathogens.
Bloodborne pathogens and HASCOM. So, village employees, that includes elected officials, village employees, will be required to sit through the 9 to 12 o'clock session or the 1 to 4 o'clock session. And if you're not able to make it, I'm sure there are probably other places you can go to get this, but village clerk has told me that I am not allowed to miss this one, so I'm gonna have to be there for that. That's tomorrow, so there'll be a lot of our staff inside this room for the training tomorrow. Martin Luther King holiday, village offices will be closed, which is Monday, a week from today, January 16th, 2023. And the village board business meeting will be the following Monday, so 2 weeks from tonight, January 23rd at 7 p.m. Inside the Edward C. Moulton Jr. boardroom. And Dave, you and Bill, Dave, let me show them that. Do you guys, you comfortable with that tonight, or do you want to wait?
Oh, I don't care.
Oh, I'm perfectly fine if.
Yeah, fine.
Okay. All right, then, without further ado, what I am going to do is I'll start out the public comment. I'll start out the board comment by saying I've already announced, but I will be seeking a second term on March 21st. And I'd also like to announce with your
I will also, he's seeking I forget how many.
trustee position. And
Gene knows.
I too will be running
I
for
defer to
reelection.
Gene.
so the mayor's
March
position,
21st.
which is a 2-year position, a 2-year term, will be up March 21st, and there will be 2 trustee seats open as well. So the 3 of us are announcing that we are running. Other than that, I think that is it. Gene, am I missing anything that I was supposed to remember to say?
Yes, sir.
Okay, then I will turn it to Deputy Mayor Kane.
I'll save it for 2 weeks from now.
Okay.
All good.
Trustee Garnwright
I'm good.
and Trustee Brain.
I'll forget in 2 weeks, but I'll say them now so I remember them in 2 weeks. New Year's Eve was great, and the water department had a training that was conducted by New Windsor EMS, CPR, and a bunch of other, including bloodborne pathogens. So I think I'm relieved from that. And that training was excellent.
Awesome. All right. Any alibis from superintendents?
One thing I forgot to mention is, the contractor was down today at the composting facilities at the riverfront. They did the install, the weather was not very good when we got them in the ground, but they were down today doing some work inside the tanks.
So that's the sawdust, the peat moss, and the coconut
Well,
coir?
there was some sealing they had to do inside the tanks themselves.
Got it.
They were in doing that today, and they're gonna be back relatively soon to button up and put their insides together.
Got it.
Still have to be assembled.
And then this village board needs to discuss with you the fact that we need to contract with a cleaning service to come in, because even though the,
Put that out.
yeah, we will have to probably, put that out for bid for a cleaning service to come in to remove the fecal matter or the, whatever the organic,
Well, that's gonna be few and far between compared to the actual cleaning of the facilities.
oh, and
Yes,
the,
the cleaning of the interiors
It's gonna need a more
versus
regular
the
service
pumping out.
inside
Do they
the
have to clean it once a week,
facilities,
like they
not
do
necessarily in the
porta-johns?
ground.
gotcha.
That'll
They
last a
spray
long
'em.
time.
That's what they do. They spray 'em.
Dave?
I was gonna say, I believe as part of the procurement associated with that, we did get some of the in-the-ground maintenance, so we had pricing on it.
Oh,
I think they provided pricing, I don't think it was included in the,
We have at least in a procurement of that. He's right though, the cleaning of the actual conventional
cleaning.
bathroom cleaning, we can talk about, we had some thoughts on that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, in the summer, at the heat of the summer, I mean, when we get lots of people down there, we're gonna have to do that a few times a week at a minimum, right?
I mean, when we had the porta potties down there, we're doing twice a week service. These facilities will probably be used more often than those,
I think so,
so.
They should be kept cleaner, though.
yeah. And it's a good problem to have, since we finally have,
Gotta put together
We could look
a
into
plan
see what the
to
town
figure out
does in the
money
outside
for,
bathroom, too.
The landscaping around.
The
it.
one at Rings
Oh,
Point.
right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thing they do
Okay.
themselves.
all right. Any other alibis? No? All right, without further ado, I'm gonna make a motion to close the special meeting
Second.
and work session of the village board.
Tried to
I have a
be-
second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thanks, folks.
You know, we gotta look into that, cause I think the town cleans their own outdoor bathroom
have
at the
enough
Little League.
people.
field. I know we do.
Yeah, we just don't have.
Yeah, guys, keep in mind, the microphones are still on. The microphones are hot.
Carol?
Can they be sprayed down like porta potties?
Fest?
No, because
It's gonna be a soup fest.
I gotta figure this out. I gotta see
You'd
this.
have that
on my
vote.
own. They sprayed them down.
It's locked up, you can't get in there now, I don't think.
No, no, I-
I'm gonna work on that right now.
Oh. But so they'll.